The Iranian missile attack on Israel isn't adding up, at least not in terms of some of the establishment talking points we are hearing. First, we have the logical take from the Institute for the Study of War. The ISW compiles reports for creating the maps of who controls what in Ukraine, and almost everybody uses them as a source of information. If you've seen this map I've got up with the pink shaded areas of control, this is their primary product, and you'll see lots of people using it. Since everybody uses them, that means they are either people in the establishment or they are establishment adjunct. Their maps are likely accurate, and they try to sound as if they're somewhat neutral in reporting, aggregating, and interpreting open source information. They also do reports on Iran, just not as detailed. Mixed in with the reporting is the occasional hysterical pleading for the US Congress to send money that sound a lot like the meme I've got up here. They also say with a straight face that Ukraine is pretty much unbeatable, and that the only winning strategy the Russians have is convincing us that the Ukrainians can't win. In other words, they're neocons, which means in the context of this video, they want to see Russia dismembered, crippled, or the Russian government overthrown. They also want to see either regime change in Iran or an Iran so crippled that Israel can become Greater Israel. With that in mind, they believe Iran launched a mass attack and essentially screwed up. According to them, Iran launched a much bigger version of strike packages that Russia has been successfully using against Ukraine. The idea is swarm the defenses with drones and cruise missiles and then increase the odds of the ballistic missiles hitting their target. Any drones that are missed by air defense just become a bonus if they hit their target. ISW's conclusion was that Iran grossly underestimated how far out their drones would be engaged and how much better Israeli missile defense was than Ukraine's. Does this make sense? Yes, it makes a lot of sense actually. Ukrainian success against ballistic missiles is around 16%. It would make sense then that Iran would believe Israel would perform in a similar manner. Israel's missile defense has not really been tested like this before. It's logical to assume that Iran would do relatively as well as the Russians. However, that's not the story a lot of the mainstream has picked up. According to mainstream media, Iran negotiated with the United States to see what they could get away with and not fully incur the wrath of Israel. Then, according to them, Iran unleashed a massive missile and drone attack against Israel, knowing only a few would actually get through. And they were doing this to save face because Israel had hit the Iranian consulate in Syria. Now, they were even saying, well, the matter is just closed. It's okay. Well, this sounds a lot like bullshit to me. The first issue we need to understand is that there is evidence that the US has deliberately mistranslated Iranian government pronouncements in the past. So, pretty much anything the media is telling us is a shoulder shrug. You don't know if it's accurate or not. So, their translations of what the Iranian government is saying is to be viewed as at least highly questionable. Part of what's being claimed is that Iran deliberately launched an attack they knew would fail to save face. Save face with who? The Sunni man on the street? Well, they might give him a few props for launching an attack. But if Iran deliberately failed an attack, would this not have a whole lot of impact either way? Wouldn't it have been just easier not to shoot off a bunch of missiles? They'd be pretty much in the same place they are. To save face with their Shiite clients? Iran is the only entity giving them support, the Houthis and the Syrian regime. Launching a failed attack doesn't seem to save face with them. They're going to be looking towards Iran no matter what the outcome of this was. Is there a hardline faction in Iran that needs appeasing? the idea that the attack launched would deliberately fail wouldn't appease such a group either. Are there other possibilities? Well, based on the best estimates, Iran dumped around 10% of their stockpile in this attack. It is feasible that they use this opportunity to probe Israeli defenses to see how good they are. However, due to distance, Iran would have very little information on what missiles made it to what point in the target grid. So the best information they could get is that 10% of their stockpile is not sufficient to penetrate. So although a little more plausible than the safe face scenario, not particularly good. Now, the idea that Iran deliberately fumbled the ball is a complete fabrication. It has to be. Nobody would deliberately fail for the fantasy reasons that media has been basically presenting to us. So the most likely outcome is that Iran misjudged their attack and that the deliberate fail narrative is to allow Israel to save face in order to stop them from counterattacking Iranian assets. You've been hearing Biden and other members of the government saying, take the win. I would say that falls under the whole Israel saving face rather than Iran saving face. Now, the neocons may have their greater Israel fantasies, but the neoliberal order is still in the driver's seat. Right now, the biggest move afoot is to try to get Israel and the Arab Sunni states to continue moving forward on normalizing relations and creating a joint alliance. This was something that was thrown off track by the Hamas attack on Israel, which is not a coincidence, by the way. That's precisely the reason it happened. And the only way to keep that diplomatic momentum on track is to end the confrontation with Iran and Hamas as quickly as possible. So, in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think Iran just basically completely miscalculated this? Or do you believe the saving face idea that media has been presenting? Do you have an alternate idea for why this went down the way it did? Anything that I didn't consider, that is. And if you like any of my ideas, feel free to say that you did. Please hit the like button. If YouTube algorithm brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please consider subscribing. Look at my titles. I get into a lot of different things. And if you know someone who might find this useful or interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.